Hello everybody! So it felt like it was about time to do another update. So last time, as you might remember, we ended off with Chaos's profile being revealed. From there I've been working on several sources such as the site, the new profiles, the new pictures, species, and so on. So the next species that I worked on finishing the shard for was the ice species. Now this was again one of the species that was open for a redesign by other artists. And so for this species, which was redesigned by Kitty Kyra26, could have said that wrong, she was the one who made a concept, and that concept ended up winning. Now, as you can see, the ice species are actually as good as pure white, so it's probably interesting since in AzureHowl it was really made a thing that Rusa was the only white wolf. Now, this is no longer going to be the case, as you can see from this species. They do have a little bit of a mane, so they're not completely white, but for the most part of it, they have a white pelt, coat, everything, because obviously they'll be targeted because of their coat by, for example, bounty hunters and other wolves that would potentially try to sell them off as the Azure wolf, and so on. Okay, so after the ice species, we immediately dived into another species, and that's the water species. Now, a lot of people are really happy with their redesign as well. These were just redesigned by myself. They were one of the more loved species, so originally I didn't want to change them that much because I felt like, you know, people chose them as one of the favorites and I should respect that, but the ideas I had were kind of fun, and when I did bring them up to my Patreon supporters, people were very open for it. So basically what happened for the water species is that they got variations for their kind. You'll basically have the lake variant, and this is when wolves are basically being born in lake areas, in the water, because their birth system is really different from your regular wolf. They're kind of closer more to frogs, which is a little bit of a hint, of course, to that tadpole tail they got. Now, the second variation is basically a coral variant. These guys are basically born in coral reefs that are attached to the island. Despite that they live in the sea, they really do not venture into the sea. They really stick around the coral areas and get out of fear, basically, to get lost in the sea and to never find the island again. These guys are actually kind of interesting for the reason that their coral can be different even if they do not have a symbolism going on, mutations going on. Their coral can be a bit different. But they also have variations amongst that. This was also for the lake variant. They basically have variations with their fins. These do depend on if they're symbolized or not. Now, the last variation is the shallow variant. They are a lot darker. They're basically born in shallow waters. So, unlike the other ones, they aren't really born safely in like a bigger lake, for example, or the seas, or on the really deep in the water and so on. But these guys, they do live actually in more bigger lakes, so to speak. But when they are born, they just are born in shallow places. So after the water species, it was Luna's turn. And Luna also made quite a change because her species went through a redesign. It of course meant her entire physical look and whatever changed as well. As you can see, she no longer really has that iconic crescent-shaped mark on her eye. It didn't really work that well with her new look. She does keep a crescent on her shoulder. And other than that, she also gained a little scar under her eye. Now, after Luna, it wasn't really a species chart, so to speak. I did make another chart, and you definitely maybe want to check that out on DeviantArt. This is an entire chart that focuses on hybrids and how hybrids basically came to be, or how they are, a little bit of the laws between them. These are not open for fan characters, so if you join DeviantArt or if you join the Discord for AzureHowl Reborn, these will not be allowed to be made. These will be slots that can be earned or won. But if you do get such a slot, you'll have this entire map, basically, or this entire cheat to learn how to make your hybrid according to the rules, of course, for AzureHowl Reborn. Now, after this species, it was again the turn for another species, and that's the light species. Now, these guys were also open for redesign, and I'm gonna pronounce his name wrong. Xian was the one who did the redesign concept for them. Eventually, as I've always said, we do when the concept is chosen. There are changes added, which can be seen here on the pelt colors and so on. For the light species, the concept gave some very great ideas, especially with the tail. It felt like I could make a bit more of a bird tail of that. The light species are very different from their original look, although the males are maybe the closest callback to them, having that yellow top and white below. The females, of course, changed. They have basically a reversed version of that. It gave them this more holiness, a holy kind of feeling, I guess. Again, another species as well that features near white pelt almost, aside from the markings, of course. Now, for light wolves, there was also a different trait as well. This is the royal variation, and those are wolves that basically can have different shapes for their tail and their wings. Now, this is also another thing. Originally, their wings were generated light that could have different shapes, but this was changed for transparent wings. Now, these wings can, of course, still be different. So for their wings, what's available would be the swan, hawk, eagle, owl, seagull, falcon, and parrot wings. These are all available. With the royal variations, the extended wings feathers you see here, these are basically not available. These are really a royal thing. So yeah, the other thing I would really like to say is, I'm showing them off quickly here, but I really suggest to check out their entire chart to read it. A lot of information is given on it, and you'll find that a lot of species are much different from what they used to be like, or have a lot more details to them. Now, after the light species, we dived into another species, and this one is kind of interesting. The mystic species was completely changed. So basically, they became the now known spirit species, and there were a few changes done to them. I no longer wanted them to control 3 elements. Originally, this was plants, fire, water. This has changed into, well, I wouldn't call it one element. They are I wanted them to be kind of like these spiritual wolves that also live a bit isolated, and this is something they originally did as well. So their power basically became a mix of nature and mist. This basically gives them the opportunity to still control roots, plant matter, but they also have this second added element of mist, where they can have fog and mist creating, and basically they are a little bit in touch with water. So they're basically the first species to have 2 elements in a way to their control. The one trait they actually did keep from their original design was that when they were born, they would be pure white. Now, this is a little bit of a reference to wolf puppies in real life. Only difference is that wolf puppies are usually born really dark, black, brown, you name it. And in this version, the spirit wolves will be born pure white. Now, after spirit wolves, we move on to the next profile. This is gonna be for Kratos. Now, Kratos is a wolf that was mentioned in episode 4 as the Thief King. And here you have him in all his glory. Now, he did get a profile as well in the original series AzureHowl, but he was not really mentioned other than episode 4. So the psychic wolves were next. And generally they were really liked as well. And I did first want to give them like this entire redesign, but I just ended up not getting through with that. There were elements I really liked of their original design. I guess for me, purple and white is just a color I really love as well. So I decided to go with that. And originally, for the chaos species, when I was drawing concept art, I drew a chaos wolf with 2 tails. And then when drawing that, I was kind of like, actually thinking about creatures like the kitsune and all those magical-like creatures. I think it gave me just like this idea set and mindset, 2 tails. It just makes more sense for psychic-like creatures. Now, the gemstone you see is something new. The stones basically can have different shapes. The shapes can be seen here. You have round, diamond, drop, oval, and then the octagon, but the octagon is for the blessed one. So basically the wolf that is blessed by the dragon of the psychic wolves. Now, of course, the gem was actually, or you could say there was a psychic wolf that was shown in the episode before that actually was wearing a gemstone on his forehead, or having a gemstone on his forehead, however you have to say it. And the idea behind all of that, of what was going on with that wolf and that gemstone, was still a bit different from what it eventually became here. But I will admit that that wolf, specifically with that gemstone, was the real, like the main reason these guys ended up with gemstones. Because this will change, but there was also a shadow wolf that was shown with a gemstone on his forehead, just briefly. But it was that psychic wolf that gave me the idea to start with these gemstones, and then the idea of variations with these stones sounded really fun. The gemstone form, it really depends on where the female spent gestation period, when she was pregnant. So if it's round, they spend gestation outside of their natural habitat. If it's diamond, they spend gestation in the mountains of their natural habitat. A drop probably speaks for itself. They spend around the rivers in their natural habitat. The oval is if they spend in the meadows or forests in their habitat. And as I said before, octagon is if you're blessed by the dragon. But yeah, that was a psychic species. After the psychic species, we move on to the next profile. And this is for a wolf that was, has at least been appearing in the episodes as well. Satyr. So Satyr himself also made a design change, and personally I'm liking him a lot more than the original version. So Satyr, his scars were changed a little bit up. He did keep quite some traits from his original look as well, but also some changes, like the facial marks and such. He keeps actually some resemblances to his sister now, which is Luna. For those who maybe have not seen or read all the updates, Luna now is basically became the sibling to Satyr in this case. Her father is now Kratos. Lokin originally was this guy. That was the guy that had Kratos as his father and Satyr as his brother. But he changed now, and he basically, in a way, swapped places with Luna. I'm sorry, Lokin. Now you have to go through all this shit. Okay, no, okay. But yeah. After this was done, the next thing that was done was the sand species. Now the the sand species was also open for redesign. Their new concept was done by Ice Riviera, I think it said. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. They kind of really feel more like they suit the desert. They also got variations. So with that said, they have just a regular desert variation, a spiky variation where they have more spiky pelt, and an oasis pelt where they have like this more wavy, nice looking fur, as if they truly walked out of an oasis in all their grace and fanciness. Also socially wise, they're a bit different. Their original new concept was inspired by several sources, such as the Jackal, and I took some of those personality traits to basically give these guys a bit of like a different nature and such, to make them a bit more interesting. Now, after the sand wolves, we move on to the next species, and this is probably one of my favorites, and one of the species a lot of people kind of wanted to see, or at least what would happen to them, and that is the ghost species. So they changed quite a bit. Their color actually was changed because their natural environment that was on the map, which you can't see, it's hidden, yes. But the colors really actually did not match their original look, and I wanted it to match. So basically, it used to look a bit like they were wearing pants, so to speak. Okay, maybe not pants. But now this color became light, while the other color, where their faces and such, is more dark. If you look at the males, they have this little fur ridge going on the rump, while females have this on their shoulder. They also have these longer ears with tufts of fur. They have this very long looking tail. Now all of these little traits, especially as well like the little stronger dew claw that males have, was inspired by their original dragon god. So this dragon god basically is reason why, or at least inspiration for their traits. Now they kind of have this more, almost like a wolf dragon-like feeling to them. Their colors also became this more night, darker purple-ish kind of tone. They kept their eyes that were always like a light pupil, darker other colors. And so basically their entire chart also gives quite some information about them now. So more is known. These guys were really fun to work on. A bit of a challenge because they were also one of the fan favorites, and I first didn't want to change them at all. But then, well, when you get to drawing a bit, you get these ideas, you just want to go with it, and that was kind of fun. Now, after the ghost species, it was time for Mutt. Now, Mutt was one of the characters people really wanted to see as well. like to see what would change on him. And Mutt himself got quite some changes too. Now his species, of course, went through a redesign, so that's in the first place why he's looking so much different. But unlike his original look where he had lots of yellows going on, the yellows kind of left, and the only sign of yellow that can be found in him is on his eyes. Other than that, he also is the only character so far that has been revealed to have a bit of a different thing going on, which is on his flank you can see a marking, and this is actually not a marking. This is a branded mark, which means this poor boy had to suffer at one point of his life. He's also one of the only characters so far that has been shown to have an actual symbol on his paw pad. So that was Mutt then. After Mutt, we move on to the next profile chart, and that was of Aquila. Now, of course, the species have to be made before I can do the profiles, and quite some people were asking for Aquila, so now that her species is done, I could also do her profile. I first was considering to keep her with her normal species colors, to have her be like a representative of her kind, but it's just I can't look at Aquila and not see bluish tints, so she kept her color mutation. She has a blue mutation. Other than that, a lot of her changed, but you can see some similarities, like the shoulder on her leg, those markings on her back on the rump. She kept some traits still similar to her original look, and she got some changes aside from that. Now, after Aquila, we only have one more thing to discuss, and that would be the metal species. Now, the metal species probably really resemble for most of it their original design. Even marking-wise, almost nothing changed about them. Now, the interesting change about them, though, is actually their feet. As you can see, they no longer have these separate little nails. They actually have claws for their feet now. And these are just part of them, and it's not like you could, so to speak, pull out a nail. Okay, that sounds painful. Forget I said that. But other than that, marking-wise, they really remained almost identically the same. Maybe with a few changes here and there. Now, originally, one of the main reasons I didn't want to change their design is because they were actually inspired by the coat and colorations of Holy Burman cats, which was the cats I grew up with when I was little. And especially when I went for the gray tones, which was a bit more of a reference to my beautiful cat Booster, who is now has passed away. I really did not want to change this design. It just had too many fond memories of my cats, and it was kind of like almost in an honor to them. So for that reason, I really didn't want to change it. But taking cats into account, I did play around with how these wolves behave, and they have some cat-like traits, I would say. They behave a little bit different from wolves. For instance, they really like to spend time on their own. They do fight together as a group when it comes to protecting their territory, but other than that, they really just enjoy some private time, just on their own, kind of like cats. They also, with these claw-like feet, have more capability to climb trees, so that also gives them a bit of an advantage there. But yeah, this species was overall really interesting to work with. Maybe another little detail that was kind of, maybe kind of interesting, which is their weaknesses. Originally, they were actually strong against poison. Now, this is actually changed, and poison actually became their disadvantage. One of the main reasons I did this change is because while they do control metal, that doesn't mean their bodies are metal. And because they have a special metal that they use to basically make new limbs with artificial veins in it, I thought if this is a weak spot and if poison gets into that, it would probably be even more painful. So with that in mind, I decided poison should be a weakness to them. They can control metal, float it around, have it in little bullets, shoot it at their opponents. Basically, they're your deadly wolf guns here. But yeah. Now that was it. The metal species were the last ones that I finished now, or at least that I've publicly uploaded. Now, expect some other species to come, like the earth species and such, but I can say that a lot of progress has been made. We're getting actually, surprisingly enough, closer to the end of the species now. Well, we really don't have a lot. We have the poison species left. We have the wind species left. Basically, in other words, we don't have a lot left anymore to work on. I am considering to reveal one of the hidden species, but I cannot for sure say if that will happen or not, but I am considering it. But other than that, the species are getting as good as finished. And next to that, it will just be some of the profiles. And when that is all done, I can actually start my work on the opening and ending theme. the concept, or basically the storyboard for the first episode. So this will be interesting. Now, of course, at the moment that I start with the storyboard, I will actually open voice auditions as well. There will be quite some characters open for re-auditions. Right now, the voices that will open for sure, for episode 1 at least, is Chaos, Luna, Kala, and Loken. These will all open up, depending on which characters make an appearance. Other voices could open up. These are the other list of voices that will be up for recasting. Probably not anytime soon. Some of these characters, like take Tero for example, these are characters that aren't gonna appear in episode 1 or 2. So, but this is a list of characters that will be open, which is Shizuru, which is Set Summoning Snake, Argon, Kala's brother, then Raven, Reika, Flora, Aquila, Tero, Myra, and Shira. But Shira is still a little bit, we'll see what happens to her. A lot of things are changing and certain things aren't certain yet, like who's gonna stay, who's not gonna stay. Some characters might actually drop out, some might stay. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you to the next update then. Bye bye!